being an activist, but what do you say to your critics?
Again, you're being an activist. I am not.
That's not appropriate, sir.
Who are you with? What's your name?
That's an appropriate question for you to ask.
You're going to ask how many questions? You get 3?
What a stupid son of a bitch.
Good morning, Liberty lovers, Liberty curious, and anyone else tuning in to Friendly Fire. If you're watching live, then let me especially thank you for tuning in so early. This show is dedicated to interviewing and discussing libertarian candidates running for office and only libertarian candidates. As the name suggests, candidates will be asked some tough questions, but as a fellow libertarian, I'm not here to make them look foolish or fail. I'm simply raising the bar for how we interview our candidates, as well as the expectation that we have for candidates. The Libertarian Party is the third largest political party in the United States and the only viable option to compete with the big two. In this episode, I bring on Charles Wyckoff, who is the Libertarian candidate for Mobile County Sheriff in Alabama. With that, let's go ahead and bring Charles in. Charles, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Jeff.
And did I get your last name right?
Man, that was perfect. You must be from close by.
I always forget to double check people's last names before I read them, if they're, not like a Smith or a Jones or something
Right,
that's, pretty obvious.
Well, in fact,
So,
that name, just so you know, that name was created in this country in the
okay.
in the 1600s before we were the United States.
Wow. That's
So
amazing.
yeah,
Uh,
I got a Bible and a pocketbook. A pocketbook came over on the Mayflower.
oh, wow. That's amazing. So you've got a long lineage here.
Right,
All
right.
right. Well, that is awesome. And I do want to apologize to people. So it is 8:30 Eastern Daylight Time. So I made a mistake here. In communication with Charles. Is it Charles or Charlie? Is that which way do
Either
you?
one. Most people call me Charlie.
Okay, well, we'll go with Charlie here. So, in communication with Charlie, I was very clear, 7:30 a.m. What I failed to do was to double check and see that he is in a different time zone than I am. So, looks like you froze there, Charlie. I'm not sure what happened, but just let me know if you're still there. Looks like your video froze.
It froze on me.
Okay. Well, we'll see what happens, but we'll keep going and just let me know if you have any problems. If you need, you can log off and log back on if necessary. But so I started the show this morning at 7:30. About 7:40, I gave up because I wasn't prepared for something else. And then I was like, wait a minute. And so I took a look on Google and I was like, oh man, he's an hour behind me. And I was like, so now I wonder if that's what happened to James Blake, who I also had scheduled for 7:30 Wednesday morning. I believe it was Wednesday morning. Yeah, yesterday morning. And so I'll have to get back with him and see if maybe there was a time difference that I messed up on. All right, so let's get into it, Charlie. Let's, in your email, you mentioned that this was your second time running for office. So I want to hear about that experience.
Well, that's one of the things that's neat that me and you can talk about because you're about the second or third interviewer that I've been invited to be interviewed by, and it seems to be that it has to be a distance from Mobile, Alabama, because Mobile, Alabama's media, both radio, television, and news, seems to get a check from the sheriff's office and from the city,
Hmm.
and so they seem to keep new candidates locked out of the local media. So we have to operate with distance media and
Right.
social media, and they'll even lock up social media by doing certain things. But
Hmm.
uh, the first campaign, I mean, it was my first time ever getting involved in politics. I didn't know about the Libertarian Party at that time, and I joined the Republican Party,
Hmm.
and I started running the campaign as basically I thought I was running as a Republican, but one of the first questions I got from the Republican Executive Committee when they interviewed me to put me on the Executive Committee was, "Who gave me permission to run for sheriff?" And it went downhill from there because they filed all kinds of false accusations, felony accusations against me. I cleared
Wow.
five different uh, investigations. Cost me a lot of money to stay in. Yeah. So it was bad. And then at the end of the thing, I had people asking me for the general election because I lost the primary,
Hmm.
and I had people asking if they could write my name in on the general election. I said sure. Well, it got to be quite a few people was talking about doing that. So I just started running like a write-in campaign.
Hmm.
And at the end of the write-in campaign, uh, we lost the election, but we had 50% of the voters writing my name in during the general election.
Hmm.
And so the Republican Party voted me off of the executive committee. So I became an independent.
Hmm.
And this time I started running as an independent, and I kept bumping into a particular friend now that he was a libertarian. He was collecting signatures like I was doing. He was collecting signatures for the Libertarian Party to be able to put candidates on the ballot in Alabama. And we just kept communicating back and forth. And finally, I joined the Libertarian Party, and they put me on the ballot as a libertarian. And we've been running libertarian now. And what we're doing now is recruiting libertarian voters and libertarian candidates.
Hmm.
Hopefully, we can take back the Constitution.
Hmm.
That these guys are they're just ignoring their oath to the Constitution. So I'm 100% constitutionalist, and what I found in the Libertarian Party was most libertarians are more constitutionalists than they are politicians.
We're not very good politicians, that's for sure.
Well, the
We're
big
too
thing
ornery.
is, well, yeah, well, and it's not the ornery part. It's just that when you stand on your principles and you're not bought, or you're
Right.
not bribed, or you're not threatened. I mean, I've gotten to the age now, and once I went through the first, and I tell anybody, I was panicked in the first campaign, because I was looking at jail and felonies and
Wow.
losing rights and all kind of stuff, and I knew I was innocent. But and we suffered through it, and we got through it, and so I'm tougher now, and now I can help younger, new, regular citizens that never wanted to get in politics because of all this mess. I can help them through it, because now I can show them that the worst they can do is take you out. And so far it hadn't got that far, but I will say I'm outside right now because I'm closer to my internet, and I'll show you. My place is out in the country. And I've got gates and cameras and alarms and all kind of stuff. I mean, you'd be lucky to get in my house if I didn't want you there.
Right.
Because of the threats. I mean, we had threats, and the threats were viable because of all the state. And I mean, it was ethics board, DA's office. It was the attorney general, the secretary of state, and the probate judge. All these guys who are all Republicans. They all, had to interview me or whatever. It would have been, I guess they could have put me in jail, but it would have been a false arrest or false accusation. And we'd have beat them in court and lawsuits, and we probably would have got paid pretty good. But again, the young people that are coming on, the ones that I'm seeing right now, Libertarian Party, they've never been in this before. And I've seen this go around that they're over their head. And my problem right now is I'm in deep, so I don't have as much time to help them. But if we make sheriff on this go around, you can bet I'll be helping libertarians come up the balance.
Wow, that's a pretty wild story. So you're the seasoned vet and you're ready. So you ain't afraid of nothing.
Well,
Well,
that,
okay, maybe one or two things, but we won't talk about them because we don't want to give anybody any ideas.
No.
They got to figure it out on their own.
Right.
You mentioned Constitution. That's a really good segue to my next question, because you also told me that you were involved with constitutional carry bill as a citizen. So what role did you play, and like how did things turn out for that?
Well, I was a leader for a group in Alabama called Bama Carry. And I kind of ended up in that by accident. I had gone to a couple of Bama Carry meetings, and just in conversation with the guy who was leader at that time. He was leader of 2 counties, and he was from the other county. And he asked me if I would take it over in this county. And I did, I eventually did. And just as an example, when I first started with them, the Facebook page that they had probably had 500 to 800, members. And now we're at 6,000 or 7,000 members. So, what I do is I go out and invite and, try to get more and more people involved. And there's an issue there that we got to deal with, because we was one of the groups that was fighting for a couple of things, words in the Alabama Constitution, like, for example, shall instead of may on the issuance of permits. And then this go around, we went after constitutional carry. While I think at the time there was about 24 or something like that states that had constitutional carry, we now got it passed. It'll start January the 1st. And what's sad about it is the NRA, who was not helping us very much, they actually took credit for getting constitutional carry. And we still have to fight with the local sheriff, and there's a couple of the counties that are here. There's a couple of sheriffs here. They don't believe in constitutional carry because in Mobile, it's $1.5 million industry for them to sell permits. But we did get it passed. Oh yeah. Well, so we did get it passed. And so that, like I said, it'll start in January. So people, and it's really crazy. I know every state has its, interesting features with regards to the Constitution. But one of the interesting things here is you can open carry in the state of Alabama without any problem. But once you get in your vehicle or own a motorcycle, it becomes considered a concealed firearm. And in Alabama, you had to have a permit for a concealed firearm. It wasn't for anything else. Now, you could carry rifles, shotguns, and everything else in your vehicle without a permit, but you couldn't carry a pistol in the vehicle, or you couldn't conceal it under your coat or something like that, or in your purse or whatever. So, like I said, we won that, and so now we're happy about that. But we got some other things that are going on. They tacked some little things onto it that we're working on clearing up too right now. But that's what Bama Carry is just their only job, or their only task is Second Amendment stuff.
Okay.
You know, in my case, and I've always been Second Amendment anyway, but in my case, running for sheriff, and what I'm seeing now is how many citizens' rights are being run over by officers, or really it's the leadership of the law enforcement agencies here, that these guys are getting running over people's constitutional rights. And so, you know, as my position as a sheriff, that's what I'm going out to do now, is trying to hopefully have deputies and train deputies to where it's about constitutional rights, not about just laws that these guys make up. And it just as an example, like a tinted window. I mean, they've made it a law to have tinted windows, but all the deputies have blacked out windows, while the citizens can't have that.
Right.
So
I'm a big fan of, if the government can have it or do it, then citizens should be able to have it or do it.
Right.
So that, when I was doing some research, because I'm in Florida, and so I'm not terribly familiar with Mobile, or, the candidates there, I didn't find a whole lot from your two opponents, Paul Birch, the Republican candidate, or LeBaron Perkins, the Democratic candidate. But I am curious, because of what you're saying, like constitutional carry was a fight and a lot of people don't like it and all these other things. So how would you, just in general, any way you want to answer this, how would you be better for Mobile County? Is it Mobile or Mobile?
Mobile. That's the way we say it anyway.
All right. I'm going to try to say it the proper way. So how would you be better for Mobile County than either one of those two?
Well, this is what I've been saying from probably the beginning of this campaign, was I am the only candidate who fought for constitutional carry, while the other two, the Republican candidate, he actually fought against constitutional carry with the current sheriff. Those two guys have been together a long time, and they both fought against it. And then the other candidate, which is a Democrat, he is a young guy, and to me, I just say, we talk from time to time. He doesn't quite understand what his position should be, but he doesn't think that citizens have enough sense to carry a firearm without him vetting them.
Okay.
And so in my case, I got a problem, because in my opinion, based on the Constitution, if you're a citizen walking these streets free, then when I say free, I'm not talking about, with warrants and everything else. I'm talking about if you're a citizen that has paid your time in prison or whatever, even if it's felonies, when you're released, then you should be able to get your rights back.
Correct.
And some people don't like that. And I understand it could be a deterrent to some people, maybe, that they would lose their rights for committing a crime. But most criminals, they don't care about rights. They care about freedom. And what happens nowadays, and not being a legislator, but I would be, as a sheriff, trying to encourage legislators to, pass laws to where criminals are held until they're rehabilitated. And if they were rehabilitated in 30 days, they come up for review. I mean, because I've dealt with young people before. If you scare them bad enough the first time, they don't want to go back.
Right.
But you have hardened criminals now, because they've been caught and released based on a time factor. And time factors are not working very well for rehabilitation. And what I would say, me versus the other two candidates, I would be arresting people that are breaking. And I'm talking about, dangerous criminals more than just somebody with a tinted window.
Right.
If I were to arrest a dangerous criminal, and dangerous criminal is anybody that would be breaking into your house, carjacking, murder, rape,
Right.
that kind
So
of stuff.
a violent crime.
That's a good word. Violent crime. I would be arresting them, looking forward to having them rehabilitated. And that's another process that's going to take some time to get, in effect. And I'm
Hmm.
not sure we'll even get it in effect. I think that's going to take a lot of legislation. But like I said, right now, our problem being libertarians in Alabama is there are none.
Hmm.
I would be one of, if I win this election, I'll be one of the only ones. In fact, all of our other candidates are just, they're just hoping to place so that we can keep the libertarians on the ballot in the next election.
Hmm. Hmm.
So,
So, since you would be one of the very few libertarians there, it is my understanding that in the primaries, which I know that the libertarian candidates didn't have one, uh, in the primaries, it's my understanding that twice as many people voted for Birch in the Republican primary than the entire Democratic primary. But
oh yeah.
Perkins believes that he can still pull enough independents and disaffected Republicans to win. So, what is your strategy? Is it just that what you were just talking about, or do you have some other strategy when you're looking at those kind of dramatic numbers?
Well, in the last election I ran in the primary, because that's, the Libertarian didn't have a primary and the Democrat didn't have a primary. So he don't even know what he would poll, based on experience. Now they're
Hmm.
polling, and what he tells me is he's polling high, based on the people he's telling me that are telling him he's polling high. In fact, I'm going to use the word betting on is that I'm going to pull enough votes from the Republican that he could actually win with enough Democrat votes. But like I keep warning him, in my last election, I had 7,000 votes, and half of my votes were Democrat and half of my votes were Republican. And so it's not like he's going to take 100% of the Republican vote.
Hmm.
Uh, but again, my strategy right now is really trying to get in Alabama, or at least in Mobile, the primary election, I think we were around 15% registered voter turnout. So it was a horrible primary for Republicans, as far as I'm concerned. And what I've been finding out is there are so many disgruntled Republicans right now because all of our Republican candidates in Alabama have voted for gas taxes and toll bridge fees and just a lot of extra tax stuff, and really nothing constructive. And so right now I'm expecting to get 75%, 50% of the Birch's voters once they actually come out and vote and they have another choice. I tried to get, and I think I got helped the primary Republican candidate get some votes,
Hmm.
but he only got about 7,000 votes in the primary too. So there's a couple of issues that we're dealing with. One is voter turnout. We also we feel like there's a problem with the machines counting properly.
Hmm.
Uh, we can't prove anything, or at least I don't have the money to go out and sue and do all this forensic
Right.
stuff. But really, as a libertarian, I come into the picture as a first time, what we consider to be viable candidate,
Hmm.
party candidate, not just an independent, a viable third choice in the race for sheriff. And we're really thinking and believing that we're going to see that benefit the libertarian and myself at least in the sheriff's race. And I've been trying to go up and down all the voters in Alabama that I can communicate with, that this third choice, this libertarian choice. Right now we have down in this part of the state, we have about 5 libertarian candidates running against Republican candidates who had no Democrat running against them in the primary. And
Hmm.
they thought they just had a nice sled right on into the position. Well, then on the primary day, all the libertarians got their names on the ballot then for the general. Well, now
Right.
those Republicans are starting to have to hustle up because they do have people do have a viable second choice, even if they don't know them,
Hmm.
because these Republicans have been just going in uh, without anybody challenging them. And now they have challengers, and it's going to be interesting what we see for for the Alabama politics in this election and next election. I'm really looking forward to this election.
Gotcha. So what I'm hearing then is Republicans have for a long time been unopposed and kind of had the election handed to them. And now all of a sudden, Alabama has just kind of swarmed
Yes,
the ballot. And so now they're kind of like coming to the day of reckoning. And so they're having to scramble and try to figure out what to do with not only a challenger, but a libertarian challenger who's not your typical, who's not your, what they would expect, which would normally be a Democrat challenger,
correct.
if there is an expectation on their part at all. So
Right.
it's just kind of like a brand new world for them. And do you think that's kind of leading? Do you think that the fact that there are other libertarians on the ballot, do you think that's going to help lead to a little bit more recognition for your name on the ballot and help you with the votes?
I'm hoping so. In fact, when I first, I waited out heavy before I joined the Libertarian Party and let them put me on the ballot. I
Hmm.
had, I had signatures going to go on as an independent, but as an independent, you had nobody backing you. There's nobody behind you, nobody around you. So I felt like, it was not where I wanted to be. I wouldn't have any power to influence the Republican or Democrat legislators, or even locally, we got Republican majority in the county commission. I
Hmm.
think we're probably pretty close to being even on the city council. We got Republican mayor, and so that's one of the things that was happening to run for office as a Republican or Democrat. It cost me $2,500 just to run a primary on the Republican Party. So I gave
Hmm.
$2,500 to the Republican Party to get on the ballot for primary, and then there was a lot of stuff happened. So a lot of people are not going to spend $2,500 to get on the ballot,
Right.
whereas the Libertarian Party, and this is one of those things that kind of weighed me in the direction of the Libertarian Party. I was concerned that people wouldn't accept libertarians here in Mobile. I didn't know. I mean, it was, you just didn't know what was going to take place. Well, as I started kind of leaking it out that I was considering libertarian, I started finding out that there's a lot of libertarians here,
Hmm.
and they've been just like tea parties and whatever. They've been voting for a Republican and Democrat because that's the only choice you had.
Right.
So I'm hoping that libertarian up and down the state will get to see the benefit of being something new,
Hmm.
another option than the same old. Because again, Democrats that are in areas like this, unless you're in a predominantly Democratic area, there's no
Hmm.
reason to waste your money.
Right.
And they keep, I call it gerrymandering the lines, and been
Hmm.
doing it for years, to where it benefits the legislators who are in office to try to keep them keep their spots. And libertarian, listen, some of the best people I've met are libertarians, and I've been vouching for Jimmy and John and
Hmm.
Ruth, and different ones, governor, lieutenant governor,
Right.
senator, all the way down to where we're at here, because I see, now John and Jimmy, those two guys, man, and Ruth too, all those, they know where they know what needs to be done, and I'm
Hmm.
looking forward to them. I would like to see them win, and
Hmm.
I'm hoping that they do. But to see that kind of people coming out to get on the ballot uh, makes me feel like we haven't lost Alabama completely.
Good.
But
Good. So as sheriff, one of the things that it seems, again, I'm an outsider, so I don't know what's going on. I don't know the lay of the land in Mobile. Is crime an issue? Because that seems to be what everybody is saying, that crime is a problem in Mobile. Is that it? Is that true?
it is, and crime is everywhere. Mobile's not, better or worse than every other big city or medium city in the country. But in Mobile, this is what we see now, and we got I know things that are taking place. I was on the sheriff's office for a few years,
Hmm.
and I know that leadership doesn't do certain things or doesn't press certain things. Mobile, based on statistics, is as bad or worse than Chicago,
Okay.
based on per capita, and a lot of these crimes that have been committed in Mobile I don't know that the sheriff could have made it any better just being a sheriff, but if he would hold accountable the DA, the judges, whatever. And when I say hold accountable, you can't always steer them talking face to face, but you can put their name in the public media that you have a certain amount of power with. Now, I'm not sure I'm going to have that kind of power with the media in Mobile. We may have to continue with people like you
Right.
and, work from the outside in.
Right.
But right now, most of the criminals that we're dealing with here, they're repeat offenders 3, 4, 5 times, and we pull people over for a traffic violation. They got 7 felony warrants on them.
Wow.
You can't keep, like I said a while ago, you can't keep turning the criminal out that's not rehabilitated, because he's not going to do better. He's going to get worse, and that's what we're seeing now. The crimes are getting worse. And murders up in Mobile, I think we were up 1 or 2 the other day above where we were this time last year. So last year was bad. The year before was bad. It just keeps getting worse each year. Right now, we're worse than we were last year and the year before last.
So how would you address that then? And I know you're saying, like, look, stop spending time on frivolous things like tinted windows, and focus your attention on violent crimes, rape, murder, breaking and entering, those kind of things. Are there any other ideas that you have that might start reducing crime?
One of the things we don't have here in Mobile, and it's just I'll just say body cameras. We in Mobile County sheriffs do not have body cameras. There might be 1 or 2 cars that has a camera in the car, but you don't know what's going on, anytime. In fact, and this is something I heard yesterday from the Democrat candidate. I didn't know this. I hadn't gone back to look, so I'm not saying verifying or whatever, but the current sheriff candidate, we do know that he has shot a couple of people. Turned out that those people were unarmed, but he cleared all that. And then he run over somebody sometime in the last few years. And that's what I was talking about, the rights of the people. I mean, even if you're a criminal, I'm going to treat you with rights, your constitutional rights. And evidently the current sheriff and those guys, like I said, they filed all these false accusations. They knew they were false accusations. And that's not something I would ever even consider doing. And anybody that works for me, they won't work for me anymore if I ever find out that they do that, because again, all the deputies will have to take the oath of office again, and it will be filmed, and it will be in contract that you took this oath of office, and it's not negotiable. The current sheriff and the current sheriff candidate, they wouldn't do that. And so right off the bat, and listen, I deal with people every day in the streets and what have you. And it's amazing to me how many guys will tell me without me even asking, that I'm asking about, vote or something like that. And they say, well, I would vote for you, but I have a felony. Well, there's certain guys out there that, and even in jail, that I would be, if I felt like they were rehabilitated, I would go to bat for them.
Right.
And people, when they start realizing you care about people, you tend to get better people.
Right.
But if you treat everybody like a dog, and that's one of our biggest problems in Mobile that I'm most concerned about right now, is our jail in Mobile is worse than our dog pound.
Wow.
So, just treating people like people instead of treating people like animals. And, anyway, that's where I see changing some of the direction. And the other direction would be where I have criminals that do not need to be out on the street. I will go to bat, forcing the DA's office, help them with money, whatever it's going to take, to where they'll prosecute to the higher standard, not to the lower standard. Because like just recently, we had a guy that had like 6 counts of child molestation, and they let him plead to the lowest accusation, and he got 90 days for molesting
90 days.
Yes, for molesting 2 little girls less than 12 years old.
Wow.
So, yeah, I can't do that. And this sheriff that we have right now, the sheriff candidate, the all these guys that have been against me for the last 4 years, none of them stood up for them 2 little girls. I mean, the judge, the
That's
DA,
horrible.
right? Everybody could have said something about this. Everybody could have put it in the news, but instead, they pay the news media here. The one in particular I'm talking about, they paid $3,000 a page to talk about football. Now, why weren't they talking about crime and
Right.
reducing crime and protection of citizens and defending and protecting the Constitution? That's the kind of stuff that I'm changing when I come into office.
Got it. So let me ask you then, and yeah, I would assume this means that you don't support qualified immunity or no knock raids then.
Oh no! In fact, that's one of the things that I get asked a lot of times. If anything, I hold you to a higher standard.
Mhm.
I mean, my kids, my family. I mean, they all know that they know better. I mean, if you do something, I'm not going to treat you worse than another person,
Right.
but you're gonna be treated equal to everybody else. You know better. You shouldn't have never got in this position. In fact, the guy that we're talking about that got the 90 days.
Mhm.
He was they let him resign. He was a deputy for the Mobile County Sheriff's Office, and the sheriff and all these guys probably defended him and got him the
Mhm.
90 days. So that wouldn't happen with me. I mean, if that's something and you're guilty, now if you're not guilty, I'll fight for you.
Mhm.
But if you're guilty, I'll fight against you.
Got it. So what I'm hearing is you want to fight for the people if they're not guilty, or if it's a crime that probably shouldn't even be a crime, like tinted windows or something like that. You're going to fight on their behalf. If they are
Absolutely.
guilty, then depending on the nature of the crime, you might hit them with a hammer. You know,
Right.
if you're a child molester, we're coming down with the worst punishment we
Right.
can.
Right.
But once you've served your sentence, you've served your sentence.
Absolutely.
And it's
Yeah.
time to reintegrate you back into the society.
Right.
Bring back whatever rights that we have taken from you, whether that's taking you out of jail, restoring your right to vote. Does that include their right to self-defense? Would you? I think you said that earlier. Actually, I think you
Yeah.
did.
Well, and that's one of the issues that we have to kind of, I'm kind of hate to use the word iffy about,
Hmm.
because I'm not the one that controls the criminals coming out of the criminal justice system.
Okay.
If they're not vetted properly and they come back out, but the problem is that either they have their rights or they just continue breaking the law in many cases. Now, most of the
Hmm.
guys that I know that have felonies on them, they don't carry. They're afraid of going back to prison,
Hmm.
so their rights are gone, and they really have no way to protect themselves in the case of criminal breaking in their house or whatever. And there's ways, I hate to say around that, but there's ways around that. There's a couple of things that can be done. I've been showing these guys new tactics that are non-lethal, that don't require permits and don't
Hmm.
require license, that wouldn't go against them as a felony, stuff like that. But there's ways to help them protect themselves without them having to have a firearm. But you mentioned a minute ago too about the no-knock warrants.
Hmm.
That's one of the worst things we got in Mobile right now. These guys, now they hadn't done it lately that I know of, but it's been real bad about hitting the wrong house.
Hmm.
Or
Oh yeah.
a few years ago, they hit a house that the person that they were looking for was already in jail. They hit the house, and the girl that woke up thinking somebody was breaking into her house, she got up, got a shotgun. They shot her 6 times.
Right.
She survived, but it was all, and technically they had a valid warrant, but the guy that they were looking for was already in jail. If they'd listened to the lady's husband saying the person wasn't there, and they done a little check-in instead of breaking her house down at 5 o'clock in the morning,
Hmm.
she wouldn't have been shot. So I don't, I'm not saying that a no-knock warrant's not something you can use sometime,
Right.
but you got to know all the perimeters. You got to, all the precautions. I mean, we do firearms training and stuff like that, and we use all these precautions so we don't shoot each other.
Right.
Why don't we do that for the citizen?
Right. I agree. Apologies here. I'm having a little bit of a technical difficulty, so don't mind me that I'm appearing a little bit distracted. I'm just trying to make
No,
sure that
you're
we don't
good.
have any issue going on here. So, um, so I've got a question from one of the listeners here, and the question is, what is your thought on the drug war in your area, or the war against drugs?
Number one is we've wasted a lot of time, energy, and focus on
Hmm.
this war against drugs. I've grown up. I'm 65 years old, so I grew up through the 60s and 70s when they started this war on drugs, and the war was started on marijuana.
Right.
And and all these years, I've never understood why they had a war on marijuana and not a war on alcohol. Because I see
Right.
more people killed by alcohol than I've ever seen killed by marijuana. So I don't have a war on drugs like that. Now, I'm not even gonna call it a war, but I know I lost a daughter-in-law to fentanyl,
Hmm.
and but the problem with that was it was a doctor that gave her a fentanyl patch, and she come
Mm.
home and she died from the fentanyl poisoning.
Wow. Very sorry to
And
hear that.
right, and see when it shut her down, this fentanyl, I mean, you couldn't resuscitate her, you couldn't do CPR or nothing. The only thing that could have saved her was this Narcan.
Hmm.
And I mean, that would be my kind of a war on drugs, is to protect people from this illicit drugs and I still hadn't understood why anybody wants to put this stuff out here for people to to experiment with or practice with or whatever. uh, Again, I've been a minister for about 35 years now,
Hmm.
and I'm more about counseling and encouraging and lifting up and trying to give people another option. I deal with counseling people who want to commit suicide and stuff like that. And like I tell them, I said, drugs, firearms, a lot of these things are not the way to do that. I mean, there's other ways if you want to commit suicide and it be a sure thing. People talk about taking guns away, or people talking about taking drugs away because the people commit suicide. So I come at this with a completely different angle. And this is a problem that I have with some of my conservative friends, if they call themselves conservative. Whatever you do in your house that doesn't affect somebody else, including your children, you're not going to have me coming knocking on your door. I don't even.
Hmm.
I hate to use the word because it sounds kind of cold. I really don't care what you do in the privacy of your own home.
Okay.
But when it comes to the affecting your kids, and when I'm talking about affecting, I'm talking about negatively affecting your kids or something like that. I come in to protect those who cannot protect themselves.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. So I've got something that I'm going to do. I don't know if you've ever seen the show, but for any viewers that are watching that have seen the show, I'm going to do something a little different. I got a video clip. So I did some research and I found a video clip, not of you. It's a news media clip, and I want to play it. It's like 40 seconds, and then I want to get your thoughts on it. And it has to do with Mobile, Alabama. So let me go ahead and pull that video up really quickly, and then we'll talk about it. It's about 40 seconds.
Okay.
New from us at 5. Protest outside the Mobile County Sheriff's Office today. The group Faith in Action taking aim at the sheriff's Thug Thursday postings on social media. Plus, a recent post showed a Christmas tree decorated with Photoshop pictures of wanted suspects. The website referred to the pictures as thug shots. Protesters believe it made a mockery of the penal system and incarcerated individuals.
You use the image of hope to display images of bondage, images of incarceration. And that does not sit well. That contradicts what this whole season is all about.
Yeah.
So that was so for people, you probably are familiar with that. For people that are watching, or listening in, that is a clip from a news media from December of 2020. And it appears that the Mobile County Sheriff continues this practice, even having a Valentine's Day theme Thug Thursday just this year. So what do you think of that? And would you continue it?
That definitely wouldn't continue that. I mean, that's like I
Okay.
said, that's one of the worst things that's going on here is they look down on people, they talk down on people. Part of the problem is even that station that played that clip right there, or that broadcast that, they get a regular monthly check for advertising from the sheriff's office. So there's a lot of, I don't know how to put it in any other words. There's a lot of collusion between the sheriff's office and the media's around here. So the media, even what you saw in that clip there, as bad as it looks, it's probably worse
Okay.
because they will soften up a lot of stuff that would go against the sheriff's office and stuff like that. Again, I am like I said, I'm looking out for people who can't defend themselves, protect themselves, and even these criminals that get caught like I said, I communicate with them just like they're, equal to me. We're all equal on the same footing. The
Hmm.
difference is they've either made a mistake or they, did something intentionally. If they made a mistake, I'll do everything I can to help them overcome the mistake. If they did it intentionally, they're going to serve their time, and they're going to serve it, respectfully, as respectfully as you can.
Hmm.
But this sheriff's office has done that to a lot of people, not just criminals. They did that to me, or tried to do that to me in that last campaign. So that's just the nature or the character of this group that's in office right now, and that are in fact backing and supporting the candidate that I'm going against as a Republican.
Gotcha. All right. So the media should be tougher on the sheriff's office,
Yeah.
and a Wyckoff sheriff will gladly take that tough media coming right at him and holding him accountable.
Yes, I mean, I'm going to hold not just the sheriff's office accountable. I'm going to hold the news media accountable, the DA's office accountable, the judges accountable. In fact, if they don't start getting on board with their oath of office they took, I mean, we elected these guys to protect us, to do, to make laws that are constitutional, not against the citizens. I mean, the way it is right now, that our government, from the top to the bottom across this whole country, has lost their way. And I'm hoping that the Libertarian Party don't get tangled up and, get converted or changed into becoming something like what we already have. And I don't
Hmm.
think they will. I see Libertarian, like you said a while ago, there's a little bit more hardness in a Libertarian that's not
Right.
going to convert or subvert to something that's anti-constitutional. Now, one of the issues I do have with, and I'm off the page as far as your news media and whatever, but one of the things that I see about libertarians, and I've had some conversations with anarchists that are in the Libertarian Party, and listen, I talk to them the same way I talk to anybody else,
Right.
and I think people respect that. It
Hmm.
seems to be because in communication with, let's say, an anarchist in the Libertarian Party, I had a whole lot better results talking to them, trying to bring them back to center, than I had with the Republican Party, who was so far off in the right. I mean, they attack with the
Right.
libertarians that I've run across. I've never had a heated argument with a libertarian yet.
Oh, well, don't hold your breath on that because we've got that too. Okay. The running joke is that nobody hates a libertarian more than another libertarian, right?
Good.
We can be an ornery bunch, but at the same time, I think that goes toward it's a feature, not a bug, right? As they like to say, because we're going to be much harder to persuade with money or intimidation
Yeah,
because we've been so ornery with each other
right.
that, I'm like, look, if you can deal with another libertarian, I assure you, Republicans and Democrats, no sweat, right?
Cool.
Like we're a tough bunch, right? And so it's a double-edged sword. It can be kind of frustrating sometimes, in our community, but at the same time, I think it really prepares us to go out and really do fight for people that are in our community, like what you want to do.
Right.
So and honestly, as I'm listening to you, I'm like, man, I wish you were running for sheriff in Jacksonville. Like if you like that would be great. In fact, we even got a comment saying similar, since the local media shuts you down, door-to-door conversations will be the key. I would vote for you if I lived in your area. Right. And that was from that libertarian lady. And so, I think what you say sounds really, really great. I can't think of anything else to ask you. So, um, any final words? Like what have we missed that people need to know about?
Well, the people, and that's what this country is all about. We the people, not the politicians. We the people control the politicians if we want to. And it's kind of like the Constitution. I tell everybody this: the Constitution does defend itself.
Right.
It requires humans defending the Constitution. And one of the problems we've had over the course of my lifetime, I wasn't taught Constitution when I was growing up.
Hmm.
In fact, at 18 years old, I was told that I had to go get a permit to work for a private investigator to where I could have a firearm. And I did. And back then, I had to have 5 letters, one from the preacher, one from
Wow.
the employer. I mean, there was a lot of stuff like that I had to do, jump through a bunch of hoops to get a permit. And it was pretty easy to get because my dad was with the city of Mobile and he knew the sheriff. So it wasn't hard for me to get. when the permit law started in Alabama, it started back in the 50s and 60s, and it was $20.
Mm-hmm.
It's still $20. Well, back in the 50s and 60s, people couldn't afford a $20 permit, so less and less people were carrying firearms to protect themselves, and the government began to take over like that. And so what I'm getting at is the people today need to understand what the Constitution stands for, what it says, and it does protect the citizens from the government.
Right.
And everything. And the government does everything like control the school systems and everything else. So, they get to say what the schools are going to teach and not teach. So we've lost a lot. Our kids nowadays, they don't have a clue what the Constitution actually
Right.
could do for them. So what my point leaving here today is that as sheriff, I'm not just a sheriff. I'm trying to educate people that we control this thing if we want to.
Mm-hmm.
So get involved, really get involved.
Awesome. Well, let me pull up your, there it is. So people can go to thenewsheriff.com, check you out. So if you are it doesn't matter where you are, actually, no matter where you are, go to thenewsheriff.com. You can donate to Charlie and help him out in his campaign. You can follow him on Twitter and Facebook, and you can find all that information on thenewsheriff.com. And from there, you can start spreading the word and just kind of help getting the word out. Because like he said earlier, the media shuts libertarians out. They're doing that to other campaigns in other states as well, from local to state and even federal level. We've got Chase Oliver, who's being shut out of debates in Georgia. We've got Jeremy Kaufman in New Hampshire that's not being included in the media when they're reporting information. In fact, they reported a 4%. That was his 4%. And they just, I think they labeled it as another candidate or something like that.
Right.
They didn't even say like a third party. They made it about as distant as possible, like another candidate. But this happens all the time, right? And so we've got to fight back with every bit of media and every bit of, from YouTube, social media all over the place, Facebook, Twitter. This is how we fight back. And of course, if people have money, they definitely should go and drop you a little bit of coin. Charlie, I'm really glad to have you on. I'm glad we got it worked out regarding the times. I know better now that is all of Alabama on the same time, or?
Yeah, the time zone runs the Alabama Georgia line all the way up through.
Gotcha.
So you're on the east side. If I go to Tallahassee, the time changes right before I get to Tallahassee.
Right.
I guess you're in Jacksonville. One of the things I'd like to say before I go is we really need to get libertarian citizens, to try to get more people to join the Libertarian Party. It's not expensive and it's not painful. Join the Libertarian Party, help us to build a party that's stronger and more powerful than the other two parties, and we'll turn this thing around.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. All right, Charlie, I appreciate it. I'm going to kick you off. You can stay online if you want, and I'll be right with you in just a moment. And let me get to my closing right quickly here. So thank you everybody for watching. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Thank you for tuning in at 8:30 instead of 7:30 like I normally do. Next week, I will again kick off my standard week, Tuesday morning, 7:30 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. I will have on Tyler, I believe it's Capel. He's the Libertarian candidate for Nebraska State Legislature in District 38. Here's a picture of Tyler and his campaign logo. So tune in next Tuesday morning, 7:30 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And I will have to double check and make sure that Tyler is aware that it is Eastern Daylight Time and not whatever time zone he's in, which I believe is Central Time. But thank you again for tuning in. That's all that I have for this week. You can find other episodes at libertydad.com, archived video episodes at youtube.libertydad.com. You can also connect with me at Liberty Dad on Facebook, Liberty Dad Pod on Twitter, or email libertydadpodcast@gmail.com. I would absolutely love to hear from you. Hell, send me some hate mail. I don't care. I would like to hear from people. And remember, if you are a champion of liberty, your business is people and your product is liberty. Have a great week. Catch you next time. And